Right, well, welcome. Welcome to our group meditation. And tonight we've got a special guest speaker, Ted Capstick, who is an esoteric astrologer. And Ted is going to give us some insights into especially the esoteric astrology of what's going on at the moment with this coronavirus. And I will hand you over to Ted.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, and good evening to all of you. It's my pleasure to be addressing you today on a project actually that has been going in my own studies now for several years. And just to put all of this into context, on the 25th of January 2008, Pluto moved into Capricorn for the first time in hundreds of years. Now, I'm going to welcome questions after we have our break at 8 o'clock, because I'm mindful that I don't need to get too technical, because not all of you will be astrologers. But astrology works in cycles, and Pluto entering into Capricorn for the spiritually minded of us means that where forms are developed by humanity, which with its own free will devises systems, social systems, financial systems, systems of communication, etc. It has got the free will to do those, but they may not be in accord with the spiritual destiny of the planet. And what esoteric astrology tries to do is to show that we are in fact on a track. There is a destined path for humanity, but those tracks are not visible to us unless we actually determine to look into it. And the pattern of the stars is, the last 22 years for me, has been remarkably fruitful in indicating the path forward. Now, Capricorn is a sign which is, because it's Earth, it relates to all manner of things practical and financial. And Pluto has an energy within it which, as I see this in ordinary horoscopes, everyday horoscopes of people who come to me with their various questions and problems, Pluto can be one of the most disturbing and, to some personalities, upsetting of the planets, because it contains in it an energy, and all these planets are symbols for energy, called the first ray. The first ray of will and power creates, maintains, and destroys. But Pluto is particularly interested in the destructive element. So when Pluto went into Capricorn for the first time on the 25th of January 2008, I was expecting there to be some ramifications in the systems that we have on the Earth, if in fact those systems were not working in accordance with the spiritual destiny of the planet. Some people call it the divine plan for evolution. And we didn't have to wait very long, because in the autumn of 2008, we had the first rumblings of a financial and economic crisis in the world. And this was when the planet first goes into a sign in Capricorn, very, very strong when it first goes in. And that caused a certain amount of inconvenience for some. For others, it caused collapse of Barings Bank. We had a huge and perhaps questionable bailout of the banks in this country. But it actually pointed to me to be the fact that part of what is wrong with humanity may be the financial systems, the economic systems, the distribution of resources, etc. Now, I've been following Pluto's and done some talks on this through the years at various locations in the country, Pluto's progress through Capricorn. And it was last autumn that I noticed that Pluto, and ahead of it Saturn, which is said to be representing the Lord of Karma. And so when we set something into motion, a cause can create an effect. We throw a pebble into a pond and we get a ripple. Our actions can create reactions, and those reactions can be in accord with the plan or against it. And whilst Pluto and Saturn were separate enough for there not to be too much combination of energy. It was clear at some stage that Saturn would go backwards. We call it retrograde, and this is indeed important at the moment, as we shall see shortly. Saturn went retrograde and Pluto started to go forward. Saturn came backwards, and the two of them started to coincide. And my calculations gave a coincidence of Pluto and Saturn on the 12th of January 2020. And when I ran this very difficult looking conjunction together, it added in the planet Vulcan, which rules money and the economy through Taurus. Also the Sun, which is in opposition to the Earth, which brings in a planetary aspect, and Mercury, which is to do with communications. I ran that very difficult transit chart against the chart for the United Kingdom, and thank you. We can see there the chart in all its detail. Thank you, Teresa. And if you go to the top of that chart with the cursor, Teresa, can you see the Earth there, the circle with the cross in it? That is the Earth, and it is going a little bit further down. We can see the Moon, and the Moon is in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer is there. You can see it clearly there. Those two planets are also in there, the Moon and the Earth. And Cancer is the fourth sign and the fourth house. And it rules by archetype, that's by general overall energy. It rules the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And I know that this chart looks very similar to the chart of September the 11th, 2001. And the horsemen of the apocalypse that I originally favoured, that this chart could potentially lead to, was that of war and terror war. It appears not. It appears that it's pestilence which brings disease. And in fact, Cancer rules viruses and the Moon rules health. So we have the Moon in Cancer, a health situation regarding viruses, in opposition to those 5 planets, and I've got them there in red. We've got the Sun, we've got Vulcan, we've got Saturn, we've got Pluto, all and Mercury, all in Capricorn in the 4th house. Now, to somebody who studies and works with astrology on a daily basis, that is an incredibly powerful energy, and with the opposition indicated there at the bottom and the inconjunct, that is difficult beyond belief as a potential. And in my meditation around this time, I was urged from within to give it out in 2 workshops. Teresa has 3 sheets, this is the 3rd sheet, and so I went through this situation in some detail to 2 workshops, one at the west of the county that I live in, which is Bangor, North Wales, and the other in Chester that Teresa and some other people that may be listening in tonight came to as well, to say that we were facing potentially, and I'm looking at my original notes and you'll have a copy of those, there could be an unprecedented event on the Earth around this time. It will include, because of Cancer, which rules the dead and death on a mass scale. Okay, the means weren't exactly known to it, but this is the cosmos, in my view, my suggestion, taking its time to reap planetary karma and to correct the systems. Karma is a balancing process. When things get out of balance, they need to be put right. And we may not see it with our little physical bodies and brains, what we've been doing to the planet, but I would suggest that the planet has been harmed by a series of things. We're all very well aware of climate change and what that has done, and we've had warnings through floods, through bushfires, and now this virus. We have to sit up and take notice and make changes to the way we live our lives. But karma always brings us an opportunity. And at core, we are spiritual. Strip away the consumerism, strip away the commercialism, strip away the diversity of interests and entertainments, and we are spiritual in nature. We'll go out at 8 o'clock and clap those who are courageously working on the front line. There's a comradeship, which we heard about in the war, now starting to show itself. £13 million pledged to 100-year-old man for walking round his garden. We have the essence of goodness within us, but somehow we've lost touch with that essence. And in doing so, we have the opportunity to correct it. But sometimes the methods of correction, and I see some dreadful karma in charts on a daily basis, and I do know how to spot it at this stage, 22 years on of having done it. This is the reaping of karma, but the other side of the coin is the opportunity to change. And so I look, people want to know about the longevity of things. Well, we're living in a time when Neptune is direct. And what that means, my friends, is that Neptune casts doubt upon things. It gives us a certain delusory feel. We can't make our way through clearly. There's misunderstanding. There's misinformation. We can be led down an alley and it's a blank one and we have to come back and search again. And so I've done my research, and Neptune, when it goes retrograde, is the finest spiritual light to be shone on the planet. And that does not happen until the 22nd, the 23rd of June. And so my suggestion is that we're being left in the dark to sort out what we need to sort out in, well, it's only around 2 months away now, before we're given some very clear direction about the way things should go. And the whole planet will feel the spiritualizing energy of Neptune retrograde. It happens in individuals' charts because I see it when Neptune goes from direct to retrograde. And that's a very important thing that I wanted to point out, that we are being left to our own devices, as is often the case with karma. We can be given an illness. We can be given the situation where we have to deal with the sudden death of a loved one, or income flow is suddenly halted, or our family become of great concern to us. And so we have to find use our own resources and find our way through that. But it's not like we're not going to be protected ultimately with the spiritual light which is to come. It comes with one rider, and that is that, again, on the sheet, which I put this on for you, that Saturn has now moved into Aquarius. And that means that we can be reaching the peak of this thing, and the peak will level off. However, Saturn, again, why retrograde planets are important, will go retrograde and go back towards Pluto, where it's been bang on, and that's been the severity and the acuteness of things. It's been spot on the same degree. It will come within 3 degrees of Pluto throughout August, September and October. And so if we don't deal with what we have to deal with in this time up to midsummer, then we may find, it may not be with virus, it might be with something else, but there's turbulence in the planet. Only 1/3 of the strength, I suggest, as what we're receiving at the moment, because thank goodness Saturn does not return to cover Pluto exactly, but the world will have had a shaking by that time, and we will be well aware that there are things that are out of our control, and that we need to seek the inner guidance. We need to get down in our meditation and implore and invoke the energies that are working for the good of this planet, although it may not seem like that at the moment. So I would like to say to you that your questions are very much welcome, because this crisis, I can run my own chart against the same transit chart for the 12th of January, or indeed for today's date, the 16th of April. And people might say, well, it's affecting different people in different ways. It will do. The interaction of the transiting chart that we saw frozen on the 12th of January there will affect us all in different ways. And for those people with planets in Capricorn, this can be a particularly difficult time, or their moon in Capricorn. It can be a particular difficult time. And so a lot of the time I'm spending at the moment is running those charts for people who want to know a little bit more about how it is affecting them. And I should also say that we are in a position where we don't want people to fear. There's something called, and I'll finish on this for the time being, this idea of the planetary dweller. There's a collective fear that can be brought together, and I'm not saying that the television companies don't do it, maybe deliberately or not, or the media or whatever, but we are being tested on our resolve to get through something without resorting to fear and panic. And yes, this is partly helped by the fact that Neptune is direct at the moment and not retrograde, but we really have to detach ourselves from the fear and say, whatever is happening for the betterment of the planet. How many people have spoken to me and said, I can hear the birds, I can tell the difference in pollution, I can see lights at night in the sky that I couldn't see before. We only got to know in 3 weeks of lockdown that we already have started the process of purification. And part of our own personal process of purification is to take fear and anxiety out of a situation and to say, yes, this is difficult, this is traumatic, but we need to go through this for the sake of the future. And if we're really honest, did we really think that the consumerist, commercial, particularly in the West, of the way we were going, and the growth of some of the multinationals making great profits on drugs and consumables, was really the way forward? Had we not lost the inner link? We're being given the opportunity to restore the inner link by the taking away of so many of these diversions. And this planetary dweller is very important, because if we're to have a new renaissance in Europe, which is promised in the Alice Bailey books for 2024, 2025, there has to be the purging of Europe's dweller in order to clear away that. And we're seeing now that the eye of the storm is indeed Europe, and therefore it is part of that collective dweller rearing its head. We must not be frightened by it. We must know that we are indestructible ultimately, and even if our physical bodies give way to these things, the attitude that we have in the inner essence of our consciousness, which does survive death, which does go on to form a new nucleus of another body in the future, we will be going forward with the right attitude. And so this crisis is as much to change attitudes towards things and to show us just what is mortal. A job is mortal, money is mortal. These things are the things that can die away. So we're being given the chance to see what it's like not to have these crutches that we think are so important, because in that way we'll be thrown inwardly, whether we like it or not. And the planet isn't being discriminatory. It's saying that some people will cope with this better for others. But if more people have got a bit more growth to make than others, it's a great leveler, because we'll all have to grow to the same point and the same understanding. And I think the signs are very positive so far, in that people have taken the lockdown with a good deal of on the chin, and let's be comradely about this, let's be very sensible about our social distancing, and not only will we beat the virus, we'll beat the cause of the virus. And the cause of the virus, in my view, my suggestion, has been clearly laid out in the astrology. I haven't looked at my watch because I've been too caught up with my thoughts, so I don't know, is that a good point to maybe pause it? But I do welcome the questions, and as many of them as we can take afterwards, I'd be happy to take.
Lovely. Thank you, Ted. That was brilliant. You're spot on for time. Just to say that in the chat box, I have put some files of some handouts that you can download. If that doesn't work, I'll send them out with an email. And really appreciate your comments, Ted. I know myself, and I have had the coronavirus and recovered, and you ran my chart, and I have Moon in Capricorn.
Yes.
And the Pluto Saturn conjunction set off a T-square in my chart between my rising sign, my sun sign, and my moon. So it doesn't get any bigger than that. And it has been an opportunity for me. So
Yes.
I see it from a spiritual point of view as it's been a wonderful opportunity for me in terms of growth.
Yes, and what you're doing with these online forums as well is showing that you want to share with other people, and this is the wonderful platform that online can do. It's like a meeting as well, obviously a physical meeting, which we're meant to be sharing. And I think that when Pluto does in 2024-25 move into Aquarius, which is a sign of sharing, we will have a greater root of companionship because of this crisis than perhaps we did before, if we use what you're doing and other people are doing, the likes, to build on the fact of gathering people together. After all, we are supposed to work in groups in Aquarius. So well done you with your Aquarian bit, but I expect no less from you, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, what I would like to do now is we're going to move into the group meditation, and we will stop just before 8 o'clock so that we can all go and clap for the NHS and show our support for all that they're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screen up in a minute, and we'll start the meditation. We'll come together as a group, and then we'll say either quietly to yourself or out loud the affirmation of love that just binds us from a heart level as a group, brings our intention from the heart together. And then I'll take you through a guided meditation that's quite a visual, it's a visual meditation. And we'll culminate at the end with again repeating the Great Invocation, a prayer that was given out after the war that's very pertinent at the moment, because it invokes higher energies, love, light and power to come down and help humanity in its time of greatest need. So it's a powerful prayer said by thousands of people every day all around the planet, and it has particular power when groups of people say it together. Now, you don't have to say it out loud, you can say it internally, but your intention is that we say it together. So that's my plan. So I'll just get the screen up and then we'll begin. So get yourself comfortable. For the meditation, if you can be upright, you don't have to be rigid, but if you're just sitting upright and ideally with your feet on the floor, hands relaxed in your lap. And just before we begin, I want you to close your eyes and just imagine that we're all connecting with each other. So just have the intention that you're sending out that energy from your heart to connect with all the others in this group and those who might watch the recording as well. Lovely. Now, if you just look at your screen, I've put up on the screen here the affirmation of love. And so either out loud or just say it quietly to yourself. I'll repeat it out loud if we just repeat this together. In the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Now, gently closing your eyes. Just before we begin, I want to ground our energy. So I want you to imagine that you're sending your connection down either through your feet or through the base of your spine, down through into the earth under the building in which you are. Just connecting with the energy of Mother Earth. And now I want to bring you into this present moment. So I want you to become aware of your body sitting on the chair. Become aware of the clothes on your skin. Become aware of any sounds in this moment. And just let them come in. And now gently take that awareness to your breath. And just have a gentle focus on the breath. Watching your body breathe in. Watching your body breathe out. And just let that breath get a little deeper. And feel your body begin to relax. If you find your mind distracted, as soon as you notice, just gently come back to the breath without judgment or criticism, with gentle kindness. And just keeping this gentle focus on the breath. Let it take you by the hand and take you into the stillness within you. Continue to focus on the breath and allow thoughts to simply pass. Returning to the breath whenever you are distracted. Now I invite you to bring the focus to the very center of your chest. And just start to breathe into your heart center. Feel as if the breath is expanding the space between your sternum and your spine, deep in your chest. Now, as you breathe in, I want you to imagine that your heart is filling with light and with love. With each breath, there is more light, more love. We open the heart center by connecting to the feeling of gratitude. So as you breathe into your heart, I want you to invoke that feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for all the blessings in your life. Now imagine that through your heart you are connecting to your soul, your higher self, the highest aspect of who you are. Now I want you to imagine that you are drawing down light down through the crown of your head from your higher self. Now this light can be white, gold, or violet purple, whichever color resonates for you. And you're drawing it down through the crown of your head and down through the major energy centers in your body. Imagine your heart as a vessel to receive and distribute this light throughout your body. Imagine your whole physical body is filling with this purifying, cleansing, healing light. This light strengthens your immune system, calms your emotions, dissolves fear so you can return to love, and strengthens your mind. Now imagine the light is filling your whole physical body and starting to flow out into the etheric energy body or aura that surrounds your physical body. You may lose awareness of your physical body. Don't be worried about this. Now imagine that this light is flowing out from your body out to fill your home, to touch the hearts and souls of all who reside with you. Now imagine it is flowing out into your street, bringing light and love, healing and strength to all of your neighbors. Now imagine it is flowing out into your wider community. Allow it to flow out further into your town or your city. Allow it to fill this whole country. And have the intention that it is flowing out to connect with all of the members of this group meditation so that our lights are combined. Continue to let this light expand so that it encompasses all of Europe. So that it flows out to all of this hemisphere. And finally to encompass the whole of our planet. Now imagine that you can see the whole of our planet from space. And you can see it surrounded by this light, like an aura. And you can see our planet healing and restoring the balance in nature. The air is clean and fresh. The water is pure and clear. The ozone layer healthy and our planet healed. See all the animal and plant life flourishing. And now see this light flowing into the hearts and minds of all men. Restoring right relations within themselves, between each other, between communities, countries, within the whole world. Now see the planet and see groups of people everywhere connecting in meditation. And imagine they are like sparks of light lighting up with beautiful beams of light connecting all the hearts. So that our group joins all the groups everywhere that are working in this way. And the power of these groups will bring peace, goodwill, and right relations between all men, lifting our awareness and the collective consciousness so that we change the way we live and envisage a new way of living in peace and harmony with our planet and amongst ourselves. Hold this energy and let it radiate out. Feel the power of this group, joining with other groups, the power of our heartfelt intention. Continue to hold a space for this energy and let it radiate out. Continue to let the energies pour through you and out into the world in connection with your brothers and sisters. Know that in this work we are one heart and one mind. And now I invite you to Gently open your eyes and you'll see on your screen the Great Invocation. And I invite you to repeat it with all of us, either silently or out loud. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Ooh. Namaste. Now we've probably got time for perhaps, it's about 9 minutes to 8, so we've probably got time for perhaps one short question. If I unmute everybody, if you just talk one at a time would be good, or maybe just raise your hand and I tell you what I'll do is I'll leave you muted, and if you want to say something, just click on the little speaker picture in the bottom left corner, and that will enable you to speak. Ted, if you can unmute yourself so that you can join me, or I'll unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, have we got a question or a comment or an observation?
I'm not an astrologer, and I was just interested to know when you put the chart up for the planet, how do you calculate the birthday of the planet? I was just curious.
Yes, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. When we have to do any astrological work, we have to have a time and a place. And the chart is the UK's chart based in London at the date 1801, because that is the chart that most astrologers take as being the birthday. It's the United Kingdom day of the, it's called the UK Union 1801 chart. And so the inner part of the diagram that you have is the energies that, as it were, our country was stamped with on the 1st of January 1801. So we have to have a birth date. We have to have, and that's chosen by man, but it's chosen 1801, as I understand, by most astrologers, because that was when the United Kingdom formally passed laws which meant it was one United Kingdom.
Oh, thank you. that. That's really interesting.
Interesting. The second wheel, which is needed in comparison, is the natal chart that any baby would be born with if they were born on the 12th of January 2000, and we can see there in the narrative in the top right hand corner, transits 12th of January. That would be the natal chart of a child born at 11 o'clock in the morning in London on the 12th of January 2020. Whoever was born at that time would have that chart.
Right.
And the way that we express the energies then is a combination of the inner wheel, which Teresa's going round there, which is the UK's birth chart, as it were, the UK Union chart of 1801, and the transit chart in the time that we're looking at. In other words, there can be some very easy times for the planet, and this is a very difficult time for the planet, and that's the point of the planet. It could have been run in Shanghai, it could have been run in South Vietnam, but I chose London because London is the capital of the UK, and my understanding was it was going to be hit the hardest, as it seems to be the case. So the computer does the calculations, but man has to pick the dates. So what's important, if you get a copy of this chart, is those two bits of narrative at the left and the right to show you what the charts are together. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you, Ted. That was really interesting.
Thank you, Heather.
Have we got any other questions or comments?
Yes, we have. Yes. Marty's putting her hand up.
Ted, you mentioned the 23rd of June, Neptune in retrograde. What does that mean? What do we expect to happen after that?
Okay, a planet can move in three directions. It can move directly, it can stop, and it can go backwards, which we call retrograde. In esoteric astrology, there are very definite qualities which are aligned to planets in direct motion. And Neptune going directly brings about misunderstanding, illusion, lost in the fog, lost in the dark, misapprehension, being misled, a fear through lack of knowledge. It will stop shortly before midsummer, and at midsummer, almost exactly like an auspicious time, it didn't have to be that time, it just happens to be that time, it starts to go backward, and it produces the reverse qualities of its direct motion. So, for example, another planet, Jupiter, can be very, very benign going forward in direct motion, but actually quite malefic going backwards. With Neptune, and it would appear that it's quite sensible for Neptune to be direct at this time, it means that we're left in the wilderness a bit on our own to get on with things the best that we can, without the outside agency of the spiritual light shining through on the planet in the way Teresa's asked us to visualize. This will come from external sources, this energy of Neptune retrograde, and it's something to be looked forward to. And I've put in the notes staying power. One of the things that we're down here on the earth to do is to be able to harness staying power, to be given a crisis, but to endure it and get through it, because spirit doesn't have the benefits of material existence, but because we are spirit incarnate, we have got the chance to give back to spirit the quality of staying power, and we will feel so much better when we go through this crisis. We will have earned the spiritual staying power. Those that survive it will have earned the spiritual staying power that Neptune direct almost forces us to have to dig deep and to find. And we often find it, our lives can be quite blessed, and then we have a tragedy, and we have to dig deep for that. And that's what means we become an evolved spiritual person, not someone who can disappear off into mystical realms and say they've had all sorts of peak experiences, but actually someone who can live through darkness and be able to stay through it and gain growth out of it, but to help other people through it as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to pause us there so that you can go and clap for the NHS, and we'll come back just a few minutes after 8. So I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Ted?
Yes.
At the beginning of them, there was a few of stars, and one that seemed to be a double-sided with the blue in the middle. What is it?
Right, I'm looking at the sheet now. This is the chart that Teresa had up before, yeah?
Yeah, but it was the slides before, as you were going across, there were some photos of either planets or stars or something.
Oh no, that's just something I put together.
Oh, because I took a photo the other night, very, very similar to one. Yeah, it's, I don't know what's going on up there at the moment, but there are lots of different shapes and colours when I sit out at night through my telescope. All sorts of different things going on.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I know for a little while that Venus and the moon in this night sky have been aligned and very in a beautiful alignment with each other. I don't know the significance.
Yeah, they have been. And they're supposed to be over the next week or so. Is it the Lipid meteor shower?
Okay.
So I shall be watching that with great interest as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Karen. Has anybody else got any questions they would like to ask Ted? Any comments they'd like to make? Any observations?
Can I ask people through you whether people can accept that the energy patterns in a horoscope do have an effect both on personal and planetary matters? Do people find that this is something they can understand?
Okay, we'll throw that open. So especially those who have had their charts read by Ted or other astrologers, or had any experience with especially esoteric astrology. Can anybody comment on the effectiveness or how that energy has played out, and you can see the direct effect of the astrology playing out in real terms, if you like? No?
Okay, let me make a couple more comments then, and it might bring something forward then. Yes. Essentially, we're dealing with conditions on Earth of time and place. That's mankind's conditioning. We are conditioned by time and by space. And in fact, any horoscope is based on those parameters of time and space. That's how we set it. We have to have a birth time, we have to have a birthplace. Part of the spiritualization of our own lives and the planet's life is to free ourselves from those conditions. But we can't free ourselves from the conditions until we understand that they are conditions. We're not meant to be subservient to the conditions. We're meant to be able to fashion another life, another way of living out of what is happening at the moment. And what is happening at the moment on the planetary scale is no different from what happens in an ordinary person's life when they come for a horoscope. And I say, you may have a health issue in 2 years' time. You may find that this job that you're in at the moment doesn't last another year. You may find that the second child is born. All of these are conditions which have to be dealt with and met, but they're not here to crush us. They're not here. They're here to bring out, as I said to the last lady, spiritual staying power. Yes, we do have to see them as challenges, but we've got to kind of rekindle that spark within us that is purely spiritual and will get us through this. So the challenges come. We say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And so we're meant to be made stronger by things, not to be laid low. Although sadly, in a situation like this, when it's planetary, there's no discrimination. The discrimination comes with the actual strength of the person's immune system, and we've seen some figures around that about how you are disadvantaged if you have certain conditions. But I'd like to mention something you may find interesting, is about the economic effects of all of this. It seems to be, and we had a bit of a rumble of it in 2008, it seems to be that the world is not working on particularly strong foundation for economics. There's an awful lot of debt, both personal and government debt. There is the printing of money called quantitative easing, which actually is inflationary. And it would appear that with the extended lockdown into May now, businesses are going to not only struggle to be
We've lost your connection, Ted. Okay, just while I wait for Ted to come back on, has anybody else got any comments or about this economic effect? Because yes, definitely, if we're going into lockdown for another 3 weeks, you know, most small businesses and many self-employed people can perhaps last for a month, but a couple of months is starting to have a much greater effect. People working from home can maybe do it for a time. Families are already often juggling working and maybe homeschooling. And I know in my house, we have to almost like juggle for the internet, for the bandwidth, for the broadband. Because everybody's working online. So does anyone have any comments about this kind of economic effect?
I was going to raise it with Ted, because anyone who watches things like this knows that the world is being laden with debt now for a long time. And this is kind of the straw that's going to break the camel's back. And so I think we're probably going to see a global economic collapse, especially with all the manufacturing frozen. And I think the next logical step will be a global currency. And so part of this is going to be 2 steps towards globalization. And so there are lots of other things happening in the background. For example, the nationalization of the world's global airlines is started to take place this week. So it's not, you could argue that there's possibly an agenda taking advantage of this situation.
Yes, yes. And there will always be, you know, when you, in any crisis, when a crisis brings out the best in people and the best collectively in people, it will also bring out the worst energies and the corrupt energies and the energies that are self-serving, always. But it's often a good thing. If you're seeing more darkness, it means that that's in response to there's more light. But I agree with you that, you know, we may, from now, we may never live the way that we lived before.
I don't think we will. And in some ways, there is a positive side to this,
Yes.
because obviously everybody's had more time, pollution is reducing, people are being a bit more sociable with each other. And so there is an unexpected benefit that people are starting to notice, and people are starting to be a bit more civil towards each other.
Totally. Yeah. And those positive benefits, I think people being in lockdown a bit longer gives them just that chance to ponder on their lives and think, okay, going forward, do I really want, you know, what from my old way of living do I want to bring forward, and what do I want to leave back there? How do I want my life to change? What has this time shown me needs to change?
Come in there, please. Teresa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I lost connection before with the internet. I had to reconnect. And that the gentleman's point there, as I understand it, and this is what I suggest, is that the current situation, which, as the gentleman suggested, is about to break up. The economics, the systems are about to break down. They were not tenable in the longer term. They were not going to lead us to where we needed to be lead to. And it's a bit like the soul intervening in a person's life. If the person's going down the wrong track and the soul is interested, and here we've got the planetary energy, the entity, spiritual entity interested, it will intervene. And if the whole thing comes crumbling down economically, and we have to start again from scratch, and globalization is something which has got its positive sides as well, because it starts to mean greater cooperation between people, the realization of one energy, one humanity, we are all one. But the resources will be distributed differently, and people will be able to live more equal lives. That is apparently part of the spiritual plan. Part of the Master Rogoski's work is to have a new economy on this planet. His master and his ashram are working with that. So my suggestion is we shouldn't be too feared if the old financial system does come crashing around. We have maybe a global currency as well. We have to trust at some point that the things that we can't directly affect are for our own good, as we often see demonstrated in a person's life. They don't understand it at the time, but 5 years later they say, God, I look at that crossroads in my life and that was the best thing that could have happened to me then. We're going to need to look at it in this way and forget the old ways of working. And you hit the nail on the head when you said life isn't going to be the same. It's not meant to be. That's how because this was too strong an aspect to not cause the type of crumbling it has. So I would agree very largely with that guy and say that we've got to try and look at all the aspects as being beneficial. But yes, it does cause rubble in the short term, and we're going to have to sift through the rubble to find the diamonds of it. But we'll be guided there.
Thank you, and I agree. I welcome this personally, planetary wise. We're going to go through. Change is always scary. Change always stirs things up, but I think ultimately, especially if we stay in our heart and we don't get pulled into fear, we hold in our heart the trust that this will lead to a better world. We almost can use our minds and our capacity to visualize to start to envision that world. You know, how would we like our world to be?
And new leaders may emerge to lead this process as well. People with more greater spirituality. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I think, and even just the time people are having to connect on, say, social media or through the internet, people are discussing these things. There's a lot of information coming out. There's a lot of misinformation, and people are having to use their discretion. But it's an open forum. People are thinking about things that when they were so caught up in their stressful, busy lives, they didn't think about these things. Whereas now they're spending whole times in discussions with other people around the world about some of the really important things.
Yeah.
This is great.
Is there anybody else?
Can I just ask one more question?
Yes.
Do you see the significance, or some significance about the fact this is an event that's influencing 3.5 billion people at the same time? Normally, astrological influences are shared between individuals or small groups. Half the planet's affected by the same thing here.
We don't need to go to it, I don't think, Teresa, but in the chart that I've got, that I gave out, the circle with the cross in it is the Earth, and that is very much the planet. And please notice that the planet is in what we call the mid-heaven of the chart. It's right at the top of the chart, in the 10th house of significant and important matters. And all the planets in Capricorn are in the personal, 4th house. So we have the 10th house, significant mid-heaven, and the widest it can be planetary. That could be solar systemic, but the widest it can be as far as the planet is concerned is the important matter, and our inconvenience and destruction is going on in the lowest part of the chart. So yes, we have a very clear reflection here that what you're normally saying is the case is that it's in between personal, maybe groups, individuals, which will be the 4th house of the personal, where this big conjunction of planets is, yet it opposes the Earth, which is planetary, which is like saying there's a planetary reflection going on. The Earth is what is needed on the Earth is this chaos below in order to purify the Earth, but the Earth is being held up as the spiritual bastion. It needs to be spiritualized, the Earth, so it's very important. It's in the mid-heaven, but in order for it to do that, we have to go through at a personal, individual and group. If you keep each nation as a group, we have to go through this as a set of groups and individuals in order to make the purification total on a planetary scale. So it is quite different from the fact of an individual personal horoscope, but it's interesting that esoteric astrology seems to encompass the planetary and the personal at the same time.
Lovely, thank you. And thank you for your question, Michael. And also we're in Capricorn, and remember Capricorn is the sign of initiation at the top of the mountain. And the idea that, you know, when you climb a mountain, as you're moving through the path around the lower layers of the mountain, the walking is easy, it's open, it's not too strenuous, but as you spiral up that mountain, the path gets narrower, often steep ravines, it's rocky, there may not be a path at all until you reach the top of the mountain, and symbolically the two-horned goat, mountain goat of duality, becomes the unicorn, the single horn of the insight, the intuition. And so we're doing that. It's like the whole of humanity are climbing that mountain. And you know, when you stand on top of a mountain, however you saw things when you were down in the valley, when you stand on top of a mountain, you see in all directions, and you are lifted up into an energy that sees things differently. You have a different perspective. You open up to the higher centers and have a new energy coming in. And maybe June is the time, you know, when we're going to get closer to the top of the mountain, where we can look out and we can have that broader perspective, and we can see why this mountain path was so tough and rocky and hard, and we lost people along the way when we were working toward the top.
Could I make 2 comments on that, because they're very, very pertinent, and I'm glad you've brought it in. Planetary initiation. Any initiation brings about a change of consciousness.
Yes.
So we can look here and ask the question, is what's happening bringing about a change of consciousness? And it's happening on a planetary scale. So I think it is right. I didn't want to use the word because people get caught up with this idea of a planetary initiation is happening there. But there's also this question of the scapegoat. And there are some people who are going to, in Capricorn rules the scapegoat, and it means that some people are going to suffer, and they are suffering, and they've done nothing. They haven't polluted the airwaves, they haven't done this or done that, or tried to manipulate financial systems or keep the money back like some of the banks have done, or interest rates not pass them on, etc. But they still suffer. And that's the scapegoat. And the wonderful thing about the scapegoat is, because Jesus was the scapegoat, is we pay off a portion of non-personal karma. It's not our karma, but we say, okay, I'm one of humanity, I'm part of the planet, I'm happy to take a share of that karma, even though I don't deserve it. And that's what the scapegoat did. And that's a very high spiritual thing. So those people who are badly affected by it, And people say it's not their fault, they're in the wrong time, the wrong. Their souls may have put their hand up for planetary karma, and they have done a great service in taking some of this, because it's such a nasty karma in many ways, although it's for good ultimately spiritually, but it has to be divided up against so many people because it's too much for one nation or one country to bear on its own. So some of us, including yourself, Moon in Capricorn, may have been a scapegoat for, but it's a high spirit. We don't like being scapegoats, but and I see it in personal charts as well. So two things, initiation, scapegoat, I think are very relevant. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, if there's no further questions, I think we'll end it there. And that's been a fantastic session. And thank you very much, Ted. Really appreciated that. And we'll have another talk and meditation same time next week. I will send you an email with the topic. And I think definitely if we're in, we'll do this for at least another month. Maybe it'll just continue. And maybe Ted will get you back. Hmm?
Yes. Yeah. I may join you next week in any case, but thank you for the invite. Can I just say that you've got my personal details. If anybody who is listening in would like some reference materials, for example, the lady that asked me about Neptune retrograde, or anybody else would want to talk to me in some more detail about an aspect or provide them with some information, that's what I'm here for as well. Like you're here to set up online meditation centers.
Oh, we've lost you. I think we lost him there. Yes, if you're interested in contacting Ted, you can get his details through me. And I will send out an email tomorrow with, once I get this recording up on YouTube, if you want to watch it again. And remember that when you join a group meditation, because of the nature of the way the energies work, you don't have to join it in real time. So if someone watches the recording and joins the group meditation, because in the realm of meditation, time doesn't exist, you're still joining the same group meditation, if you can get your head around that. Lovely. Right. Have a lovely evening and thank you all very much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you.